Parallel universes. What an exciting prospect. They're a very real possibility too. So today I'm looking at some odd occurrences that could point to possible parallel universes. Any parallel universe stories you want to share with me in the comments, please do so. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 terrifying signals from parallel universes that scientists can't explain. And we're kicking off this list with ANITA, the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna. ANITA is a high-tech balloon-type object used by NASA hovering over Antarctica. It was designed to track particles that are the result of collisions with high-energy neutrinos, which enter into our atmosphere from deep within space. Just a few years back, though, ANITA discovered something kinda strange. It detected neutrinos that a group of scientists suggested could be a glimpse into a parallel universe. The strangeness comes from the fact that these particular neutrinos seem to come from below the Earth's surface instead of from space, like all the other neutrinos the device was designed to pick up. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know this. I am not a scientist. However, the consensus amongst scientists is that this was pretty odd. This led to some hypothesizing that maybe these particles were slipping into our world from a parallel universe, where the rules of how things work might be completely opposite. Researchers have pondered that this potential parallel universe might be running time backwards. Imagine events unfolding in reverse, like rewinding a movie. So instead of coming from out there, they're coming from up there. Now, this is just speculative, but it's a possibility, and that's pretty cool. At number 9, we have a really cool story posted to Reddit by user udominate123. It seems like two parallel universes may have crossed over here. That's one possible explanation anyway, unless this is all just an amazing coincidence or, just isn't true. Anyways, it goes like this. My company was located inside a large business park, and there were walking paths that wound through buildings, crossed roads, and spanned the entire park. Every day during my lunch break, I would take a walk on those paths to get a little exercise. One day, I was walking. I noticed a car driving towards me that was the exact same color and model as mine, which isn't too odd in itself, except my car had a very unique vanity plate on the front that this car also happened to have. As the car got closer, I noticed it had a VIP pass from an event I recently went to hanging from the rear view mirror, the same as my car. I watched very closely as it drove by, and I saw myself driving, clear as day, wearing the exact same shirt I was wearing at the time, the same glasses. Since the car was inside the business park, it was moving no more than 15 miles per hour, so I got a very good look. The person driving looked forward the whole time, so they didn't appear to see me. It drove around a corner and was gone. I tried looking in the lots of the buildings where it was driving towards, but I didn't find any of them. My car was in the exact same spot I left it, unmoved. Next on the list, we have the Man From Taured. Now, this story has reached urban legend status at this point, but it's still a fascinating tale. The year is 1954, and Tokyo's Haneda airport is buzzing with activity. In walks this dude, but when the customs folks asked where he's from, he drops a bombshell. Taured is his answer. Now, wait a minute. You're probably thinking, like, well, where the heck is Taured? What is that? Well, according to this mystery man, he pointed it out on a map, Taured is exactly where Andorra is. Customs officers scratched their heads as the man became increasingly frustrated, never having heard of Andorra before. Taured? Nowhere to be found though. So authorities stick him in a hotel room, guards stationed outside, but come morning, the guy has completely vanished. And not only that, but his passport and personal documents that were in custody were also nowhere to be found all of a sudden. So the idea here is that this guy slipped into our world from a parallel universe just for a short time, a glitch in the matrix, if you will, and hopefully he woke up the next morning in his own universe and got to head back home to Taured and tell his version of events. Maybe there's another version of me shooting a video exactly like this right now, talking about the strange Japanese airport that didn't know where Taured was, pointing out a mysterious place called Andorra on the map instead. Number 7, Deja Vu. Not gonna spend a lot of time on this one because you all know what it is and it's been talked about to death. but it is one of those phenomena that scientists have yet to definitively explain. There are only hypotheses, and that's pretty interesting, especially seeing as this is an incredibly common occurrence. You'd think, like, with how often this happens to everybody, that they'd have, like, cracked the code by now. Never gets old either. Like, every time deja vu hits me, it's just as magical as it was the first time, and I always have to announce it. Like, no matter where I am or how inappropriate it may be, I gotta be like, hey, I just had deja vu. Sorry, go on. Continue lowering the casket. I don't know, I just can't help it. It's so darn cool. Let me know some of your weirdest deja vu stories down below. I'm fascinated. Number 6, the wow signal. The wow signal is a mysterious radio signal picked up in 1977 by an Ohio State University radio telescope, lasting just 72 seconds. It's called the wow signal due to the astronomer Jerry R. Iman's scribbled exclamation on the data printout. The signal's frequency and intensity were unlike any known natural source, sparking speculation about its origin. Now, the most exciting theory is that it could have been extraterrestrial in origin, but some have even suggested it might have come from a parallel universe. The strange signal has only ever been captured one time, so perhaps whatever created this signal dipped into a black hole somewhere and is in a completely different universe now. But more dull explanations like passing comet or space debris have also not been ruled out, so it is definitely no definitive proof or anything, but pretty interesting all the same. It's worth checking out the recording too. Pretty spooky sounding. Number 5, the Mandela Effect. This is another one that's, just like with deja vu, gets talked about a lot, so I won't bore you with it for too long, but it's fun to talk about. Mandela Effect is when a lot of people remember something one way, turns out to be different. People think they remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, but he actually didn't. Some think it's because of parallel universes where different versions of reality exist at the same time, and the idea is that our memories might be crossing over from these other universes, causing this kind of confusion, a jumbled mess. There's a bunch of parallel worlds, each slightly different. Sometimes things just get jumbled up and we remember stuff from a different world. Now, that's just one possible explanation for this phenomena. Some say it's just how our brains work. Our memories are not the most reliable, and for whatever reason, there are certain things our brains collectively seem to picture one way and it just doesn't turn out to be the case. Really depends on which Mandela effect you're talking about, I guess. There are tons of different ones. Regardless though, it's another bizarre occurrence without a definitive scientific explanation. I still say my favorite one is the Pikachu's tail having like black on the end. That's one I seriously, everyone tells me, oh, when I was a kid I had a Pikachu doll with like a black, his tail was black on the end. I could swear. You can never find pictures of it unless it's like a, I don't know, unless someone just made one. I don't know. Anyway. Next up we have ghosts. Now this one is pretty kooky, but ghosts don't come up much when the subject of parallel universes are brought up, so I just thought to change things up, I'd throw them in here. Now, ghost stories are not really taken seriously by the scientific community, which is fair enough. There's really no evidence that proves these types of stories to be legitimate, but at the same time, there's not really any definitive way to disprove ghosts outright either. It's kind of an unfalsifiable thing, and again, that doesn't mean they do exist, but it is possible. Unlikely, but possible. So, do ghosts exist in an alternate dimension adjacent to our own, which crosses over from time to time? Are they stuck in some sort of dimension where time doesn't move forward like it does here, and they're just trapped in a never-ending loop, appearing the same way they did before they died? Is that what happens when we die? That's a pretty terrifying idea. And number 3, we have unexplained disappearances. Unexplained disappearances happen all the time. We talk about a lot of them on this channel. People who go out one day, never to be seen again, just gone without a trace. Now, obviously, the most likely explanation here is foul play. Someone grabbed them and is just very good at concealing evidence. But is that the explanation for every one of these cases? Maybe not. It's just people have been known to disappear without a trace either. It's everyday objects too. So, are there small pockets of space that lead to parallel universes that these people or things just happen to fall into occasionally? I told a story about a month month back about a pillow I had that just vanished from the couch and then reappeared months later. Like, stuff like this happens. It's incredibly weird. Check out my top 10 evil entities people encountered in apartment blocks video for that full story, by the way. Next up, we have a story posted to Reddit by user Julia Keck, and she describes an experience that, if true, could possibly point to a parallel universe brushing up against our own for a brief moment. She writes, "When I wake up, the first thing I do is get on my computer, and so I did that one morning. I decided I'd check my subscription feed on YouTube, and the first video that showed up was just some mundane story time type of video. Unfortunately, I don't really remember what it was or the author anymore. I don't usually watch this type of stuff, but for some odd reason, I had an urge to click on it and see what it was, and so I did. I watched a few seconds of the video unamused and then suddenly got a huge feeling of deja vu. I felt like I'd watched the video before, but the weirdest thing is I started reciting it. I knew every word said in the video. Why the F would I know it? I don't remember things so clearly when I have deja vu. I freaked out because watching this video before was impossible, as it was uploaded 20 minutes before I watched it. I even checked if this was some sort of re-upload or remake, but it wasn't. And that's gonna bring us to our final point here. We have the phone call. This one was also posted to Reddit by user Torby Lilies. The story goes as follows. I was at work when my dad called my phone. I was worried that something was wrong because a few minutes earlier I had called him and he couldn't make out what I was saying, but he knew it was my voice and I sounded agitated. All he could make out were a couple of times where I used some of the nonsense nicknames I use for my parents' pets, so he thought something had happened to the dogs. I told him I hadn't called him, but he didn't believe me and thought I was pulling a prank. Later on, when I saw him in person, I showed him that the last outgoing call I had made to him had been about 5 days before, but he had definitely been called by my phone earlier that day because his phone showed an incoming call from my number and the call had gone on for about 3 minutes before it cut off. So, I mean, this would freak the hell out of me, right? It's the fact that whoever this mystery caller is sounded exactly like them, according to their father, and that they knew the names of their dogs. Was this a parallel version of this Reddit user who found themselves in another universe and tried calling their father in a panic, not knowing what was going on? Or had someone managed to hack their phone and knew exactly how to impersonate their voice and knew the names of their pets? I don't know. You decide in the comments. With all that said though, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.